Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today as we continue our reading and reflecting in the Psalms. We're going to be taking a look at the 119th Psalm, and we're going to be looking at verses 113 through 128. So we will be covering the Hebrew letters Samech and Ayin. If you would read with me the 119th Psalm, starting in verse 113. I hate those who are double-minded, but I love your law. You are my hiding place and my shield. I wait for your word. Depart from me, evildoers, that I may observe the commandments of my God. Sustain me according to your word, that I may live. And do not let me be ashamed of my hope. Uphold me, that I may be safe, that I may have regard for your statutes continually. You have rejected all those who wander from your statutes, for their deceitfulness is useless. You have removed all the wicked of the earth like dross. Therefore I love your testimonies. My flesh trembles for fear of you, and I am afraid of your judgments. I have done justice and righteousness. Do not leave me to my oppressors. Be surety for your servant for good. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes fail with longing for your salvation and for your righteous word. Deal with your servant according to your loving kindness, and teach me your statutes. I am your servant. Give me understanding, that I may know your testimonies. It is time for the Lord to act, for they have broken your law. Therefore I love your commandments. Above gold, yes, above fine gold. Therefore I esteem right all your precepts concerning everything. I hate every false way. So we see here that there is a bookend to these verses here. In verse 113, he starts off saying, I hate those who are double-minded. And verse 128 ends with, I hate every false way. And in the middle, we see this turning from wickedness to the Lord. The psalmist will say that he wants nothing to do with evil, and then he turns to cling ever closer to the Lord. And so when we get to these verses in this psalm, again, you'll remember that the psalmist, he's praying for strength in a time of trouble, and that those around him are turning away from God. They're not being faithful. And so he wants to make this clean distinction between himself and the generation that's around him. And he's going to feel different. He's going to feel isolated from the world around him because they're not going the same way that he is. And he wants to cling ever closer to the Lord. And so we see this come across in these verses. In verse 114, he says, you are my hiding place and my shield. He puts all of his trust in the Lord. He doesn't want to put his trust in the things of this world. He wants to cling to God. And we have in verse 118, he says, you have rejected all those who wander from your statutes. God brings judgment on those who do not listen to him. God brings judgment on those who reject them. Though they may seem to prosper temporarily, they have their judgment coming upon them. And he says, for their deceitfulness is useless. And verse 119, he says, you have removed all the wicked of the earth like dross. They are burned away. They are gone. And so it's important for us to commit to the Lord. It's important for us to love his testimonies. And so then verse 121 through 128, we see the psalmist saying, I have done justice and righteousness. And he again says, don't leave me to my oppressors. Don't let me be stuck with them. Let me be in your presence, God. And so in verse 124, he says, deal with your servant according to your loving kindness and teach me your statutes. Again, you can see the regard the psalmist has for the law, has for God's word. And I hope that it inspires us to cling ever closer to God's word, that we continue to put our trust in his word, and that we recognize that God's word is faithful. I hope that this helps you as you go through your day today. May God bless you.